Good morning. This is Mission Control Houston bringing you live coverage of the berthing or installation of the 16th cargo resupply mission for Northrop Grumman's Cygnus spacecraft to the International Space Station. You're looking live now at Cygnus in the grasp of the Canadarm2 robotic arm, ready to be installed to the International Space Station this morning. Earlier this morning, Cygnus was captured at 5:07 a.m. Central Time by NASA astronaut Megan McArthur, backed by ESA astronaut Thomas Pesquet, using the Canadarm2 robotic arm. At the time of capture, the International Space Station and Cygnus were flying 262 statute miles above Lisbon, Portugal. After capture of the spacecraft, controls of the robotic arm were handed over to teams on the ground who brought the spacecraft closer to the station and repositioned it to ready Cygnus for installation to the common berthing mechanism on the Earth-facing side of the space station's Unity module. As commands come from the ground to the robotic arm, you will see Cygnus move in very small increments while the team performs alignment checks along the way. Some of those checks have already been conducted this morning, including those using cameras to ensure that Cygnus spacecraft is free of any foreign object debris or FOD. Once Cygnus makes contact with the Unity module, it will be attached with 4 latches and it will appear to be firmly attached, but berthing itself will not be confirmed until another 16 bolts are secured and create an even firmer hold to the vehicle. You are currently seeing live views, beautiful views of Cygnus and the International Space Station flying 262 statute miles above India. The Orbit 1 team is still on console here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, being led by Flight Director Marcos Flores. To his right is Leslie Ringo, the Capcom or capsule communicator this morning. You're going to hear her voice as she speaks to the crew aboard the International Space Station. She'll be filtering information from the team here in Mission Control Houston up to the station to Megan MacArthur aboard the International Space Station. Each Cygnus spacecraft is named after an influential individual in the world of spaceflight, and Cygnus spacecraft for this resupply mission is dedicated to Ellison Onizuka, who was the first Asian American to fly in space. Onizuka, who spent nearly his entire life flying in air and in space, lost his life during the STS-51L mission when the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded 73 seconds after launch. He made the ultimate sacrifice in service to the space program, and his legacy lives on in his fellow astronauts and all who he has inspired and taught to fly. We are currently in a brief handover period between satellites. You're currently seeing a live view from the International Space Station Flight Control Room. This is a live view from the Common Berthing Mechanism Central Line camera system showing good alignment with the vehicle. You are currently getting beautiful views of Cygnus and the International Space Station as they are flying 262 statute miles above the coast of Singapore. If you're just joining us, we've been following the Cygnus spacecraft this morning as it approached and was on its way to the International Space Station carrying 8,200 pounds of cargo. Cygnus was captured at 5:07 a.m. Central Time by NASA astronaut Megan McArthur at the controls of the station's robotic arm, backed by European Space Agency astronaut Thomas Pesquet. And following capture, controls of the robotic arm were handed over to ground controllers, who commanded the robotic arm to slowly maneuver Cygnus to the correct position to be installed to the International Space Station this morning. It's been a very gradual process as flight controllers send commands to the station's arm, ultimately lining Cygnus up with the Earth-facing side of the station's Unity module. This cargo resupply mission started 2 days ago when Cygnus launched atop an Antares 230-plus rocket Tuesday, August 10th at 5:01 p.m. Central Time from Pad 0A at NASA's Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. At the time of launch, the International Space Station was flying 261 statute miles over the southern Indian Ocean. And about 2.5 hours later, solar arrays were deployed and Cygnus continued its journey to the International Space Station, where we met it this morning. Currently in the orbital nighttime, we are still awaiting Cygnus to be installed to the International Space Station. There are 2 stages that will happen today as a part of the berthing process or the installation process. That first stage is a series of 4 latches being locked into place, and the second stage is a series of 16 bolts that will be driven, all to make sure Cygnus is secured to the station before the hatch is open to unload the cargo. Once Cygnus is attached to the International Space Station, the crew will enter the vehicle later today to begin unloading that nearly 8,200 pounds of cargo from Cygnus. Again, this is a live view from the calming birthing mechanism, and Cygnus is now aligned with the birthing mechanism that it will be installed to just here shortly. We are now minutes away from being bolted into place. Good morning. If you're just joining us, this is Mission Control Houston bringing you live coverage this morning of the birthing or installation of the Cygnus spacecraft to the Unity module of the International Space Station. Flight controllers in the room are currently still aligning Cygnus to the common birthing mechanism on the Earth-facing side of the Unity module. Once that is complete, we're going to be looking for 2 stages of birthing to happen today. The first stage is a series of 4 latches being locked into place, and the second stage is a series of 16 bolts that will be driven, all to make sure Cygnus is secured to the station before the hatches open to unload the cargo.
So station on 2, I'm ready for MSG activation whenever you are.
And Shane, this is Huntsville with you on 2. If you could stand by, we'll give you a call when we're ready for you to start that activity.
Sounds perfect, thanks.
This is Mission Control Houston, bringing you live coverage this morning of the berthing or installation of Cygnus spacecraft to the Unity module of the International Space Station. We are currently working. Robotics operators in the flight control room today are still fine-tuning the alignment of the Canadarm2 to Cygnus to prepare it for installation to the common berthing mechanism. As we await that, we are then going to be looking for stages of berthing. 2 stages will happen today. The first stage is a series of 4 latches being locked into place, and the second stage is a series of 16 bolts that will be driven, all to make sure Cygnus is secured to the station. Once Cygnus is attached to the International Space Station, the crew will enter the vehicle later today to begin unloading the nearly 8,200 pounds of cargo from the vehicle. Good morning and welcome to the International Space Station Flight Control Room. You're currently seeing live views where the Orbit 1 and 2 team are here in the control room, currently being led by Marcos Flores and capsule communicator Leslie Ringo. We've been following Cygnus this morning on its way to the International Space Station, carrying about 8,200 pounds of cargo. Cygnus was captured around 5:07 a.m. Central Time by NASA astronaut Megan McArthur at the controls of the station's robotic arm, backed by European Space Agency astronaut Thomas Pesquet. In following capture, controls of the robotic arm were handed over to ground controllers who were commanding the robotic arm to slowly maneuver Cygnus to the correct position to be installed to the International Space Station this morning. We are currently still working with robotics here in the control room to get Cygnus and the Canadarm2 aligned to attach to the common berthing mechanism on the Earth-facing side of the Unity port module this morning. You're currently seeing a live view during an orbital nighttime of Cygnus and the Canadarm2. Again, once fine-tuning of the alignment is complete, we will see two stages of berthing happen today. The first stage is a series of 4 latches being locked into place, and the second stage is a series of 16 bolts that will be driven, all to make sure that Cygnus is properly secured to the space station. Once Cygnus is secured to the station, before the hatch is opened, once Cygnus is secured to the station, the hatch will be opened later today, where the crew aboard will go and unload the nearly 8,200 pounds of cargo from Cygnus.
Station Huntsville on Space to Ground 2 for Shane and MSG.
Go ahead.
And Shane, there's a few things that we would like for you to check before you get started on this activity. And it's a couple of switches and connections. If you're ready to copy, I can give you the details.
Okay, I'm at the MSG, and if you can just read them to me, I'll look at them and do them, or you want me to write them down?
I'll just read them to you. If you could first check the ESIM1 switch is powered on, ON, and that's on the RPDA panel. It's right there on the right-hand side towards the bottom.
Okay, I'm at that panel. Say the switch again.
ESOM 1.
Right on the RPDA panel, I see a main power switch, and I see a SPLC reset switch, and an RPDA main power LED. I don't see that switch you just called up.
Okay, Shane, just to go back on that, it's the main power switch. That's what we're looking to verify that it is on, ON.
Okay, the main power switch is looks like it's in the up position. I don't know if that's on or off. It looks like it's on, yeah, on, ON.
Okay, we copy. The second switch is the RPSA switch. It should be below that main power switch, and we're looking for that to also be on, ON.
Okay, I guess I need to take the panel off to see the other switches.
And negative, Shane. It should be right below the RPDA, and it is boxed with barber striped, red and white stripes.
Okay, I did take the panel off. There's no switch just below the main power switch. And there's 4 switches next to it on its right side. And then there's 2 switches to the right of that and 2 more to the right of that. And they're not labeled.
And thanks for that, Shane. But we're looking, it should be just one switch. You should not have to take the panels off to access it. And it's on the very bottom right-hand side.
Okay, and is it the SPLC you said?
And that's RPSA.
Okay, I do not see that.
And then, Shane, so we'll go ahead and have you look at a couple of connectors. It's the Juliet 4.3, Juliet 4.7. If you could see if those are well connected at the UIP.
Okay, Juliet 4.3 and 4.7. I'll check those now.
That's a good copy, yes.
And you just heard astronaut Shane Kimbrough and Capcom in capsule communicator Leslie Ringo here in Mission Control Houston, as well as some payload specialists, going over some tasks that he's performing while we still await the Cygnus realignment to the common berthing mechanism to finally install Cygnus to the Earth-facing side of the Unity module this morning.
So back with you on 2, Juliet 43 and 47 are well connected.
And we copy, Shane. Thank you. And we might have a little bit better description for that one switch we were asking you to check that you couldn't find, but it is outlined in a red and white diagonally striped box, and it's going to say rack power.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. That rack power is on, ON.
Perfect. Thank you. We need to do a few more checks here on the ground, and then we'll give you a call when we're ready for you to begin that activity.
Copy that. Thank you.
Good morning. This is Mission Control Houston, bringing you live coverage of the Cygnus spacecraft to be installed to the Unity module of the International Space Station this morning. You're currently getting live views of Cygnus and the Canadarm2. We are awaiting robotics and proper alignment of the Cygnus spacecraft to the common berthing mechanism. Proper alignment is going to be important this morning as we get ready to birth Cygnus. There will be 2 stages of birthing this morning. The first stage is going to be 4 latches, and then the second stage is going to be 16 bolts that must be driven to secure Cygnus to the International Space Station. Cygnus and the International Space Station are currently flying 260 statute miles off the coast of Costa Rica. Again, we are waiting for fine-tuning from the robotics officers in the room to get 4 good signs for ready to latch to get Cygnus berthed or installed to the Earth-facing side of the Unity module this morning. Good morning from Mission Control Houston. You're now watching live coverage for installation of the Cygnus spacecraft, Northrop Grumman Cygnus spacecraft to the International Space Station. You're looking at a live view of Cygnus in the grasp of the Canadarm2 robotic arm, ready to be installed to the International Space Station this morning. We are currently working robotics in the room with the robotics ground controllers to ensure alignment for Cygnus to the common berthing mechanism. Once we have all four ready to latch signals from the robotics operators, Cygnus will be ready to be birthed. There will be two stages of birthing that we see this morning. That first stage of birthing is going to be 4 latches that we look to lock in place, and there will be 16 bolts that will have to be driven, all to make sure that Cygnus is secured to the station before the hatches open to unload the cargo. As we continue fine-tuning Cygnus to the common berthing mechanism, the Orbit 2 team is taking control of Mission Control Houston, being led by Flight Director Rick Henfling. And to his right, taking over for the Capcom position, is Koichi Wakata, JAXA astronaut. He'll be filtering information from the teams here in Mission Control up to the station to Megan MacArthur. If you're just joining us, good morning. This is Mission Control Houston, bringing you live coverage of the birthing or installation of Cygnus spacecraft to the Unity module of the International Space Station. Earlier this morning, Cygnus was captured at 5:07 a.m. Central Time by NASA astronaut Megan McArthur, backed up by Thomas Pesquet of the European Space Agency, using the Canadarm2 robotic arm. After capture, the spacecraft controls of the robotic arm were handed over to teams on the ground who brought the spacecraft closer to the station and repositioned it to ready Cygnus for berthing this morning to the common berthing mechanism on the Earth-facing side of the space station's Unity module. We are currently getting fine-tuned alignment from robotics officers here in Mission Control Houston, and once we have that, we'll be looking for 2 stages of berthing. The 2 stages that will happen today as a part of the birthing process is the first stage is a series of 4 latches being locked into place, and the second stage is a series of 16 bolts that will be driven, all making sure that Cygnus is secured to the station before the hatch can be opened and the cargo unloaded today. This is Mission Control Houston bringing you live coverage this morning of the berthing or installation of Cygnus spacecraft to the Unity module. We just heard around the room robotics officers explaining to Flight Director Rob Henfling that they are currently having slight difficulties getting all the ready-to-latch indicators to come on. This is the last step before Cygnus is going to be berthed to the International Space Station today. We are still not there just yet. We are still fine-tuning the alignment for Cygnus to be attached to the common berthing mechanism. So we're still waiting to proceed with berthing. And we just had confirmation in the room from robotics officers. We do have 4 good ready-to-latch indicators, and we are ready to begin the berthing process for Cygnus to the common berthing mechanism. We'll be looking for the 2 stages here to happen here shortly.
Station Huntsville on Space to Ground 2 for Shane for MSG status.
Go ahead, Huntsville.
And Shane, we apologize for the long wait. We are still trying to get the rack in a good configuration here on the ground. So if you could just stand by for a little bit longer, we will give you a call to let you know when we are ready for that activity, if you are still able to do it in your schedule.
Okay, sounds good, and I'm ready for Mochi whenever they are.
And copy, and we'll let you know when we're ready for Mochi.
Thanks.
Cygnus is currently in its berthing position and is ready for first and second stage capture to begin. We're just waiting for ground controllers to initiate the next step that will push Cygnus into the common berthing mechanism. And we just had confirmation first stage of capture is complete and that the Canada arm is now confirmed limp, which means it will not be imparting any forces on the vehicle as the next stage of capture are completed. The second stage will be driving of 16 bolts to secure Cygnus to the International Space Station. One, Once Cygnus is berthed to the Unity module today, it will remain attached until November of this year. Once it departs the International Space Station, Cygnus will remain in space for an additional week or so to complete some additional mission objectives before burning up in the Earth's atmosphere upon re-entry. First stage capture is complete. The 4 latches are complete now. We are ready to drive those 16 bolts. We are now awaiting the completion of the second stage where all 16 bolts will further secure the Cygnus spacecraft to the International Space Station.
Station Huntsville on Spacer Ground 2 for Shane for Mochi.
Right on 2.
Hey, Shane, we are ready to get started on that activity. If you are, we do have the PD enabled on Spacer Ground 3, and his name is Chris.
Okay, sounds great. I'll meet Chris on Space to Ground 3 in just a minute.
As we wait for that second stage capture completion confirmation from the team here at Mission Control Houston, we are also going to be looking at 2 hatches the crew will need to open to access the contents of Cygnus later today. Once the vehicle has been attached and is secure, the hatch on the station side and a hatch on Cygnus itself, they will prepare and outfit the space in between Cygnus and the station today in preparation for the hatches to open.
transition to station on 2 for the Node 1 leak check prep.
Go ahead, Mark, on spaceground 2.
Sorry if I said this is spaceground 1, spaceground 2. Checking in Eclipse procedure 2.833 that step 1.1, the embedded RFID reader radios are off.
Mark, you a go for that.
Thank you, Koichi-san.
Thank you.
Again, we're standing by for confirmation of stage 2 complete, which means all 16 bolts are driven, which will further secure the Cygnus spacecraft to the International Space Station. Cygnus and the International Space Station is currently flying 262 statute miles above the Arabian Sea. And we're still waiting on confirmation for Stage 2 completion.
Houston, station on 2.
Go ahead, Mark, on 2.
Thanks, Thomas here. Just checking with you, my Node 1 CBCS remove activity is not linked in any way to Mark's activity. That's something we can perform in parallel. And also checking that the no exercise constraint has ended.
Checking. Station Houston on 2, Thomas, exercise constraint is no longer in place.
Copy for that, and when you have a go for me to start, I'll be listening.
Yes, you go to perform the CBCS activity.
In work.
Thank you.
And we now have confirmation all 16 boats are now tightened and secured between Cygnus resupply craft and the Unity module. And second stage berthing is complete. Cygnus is fully attached to International Space Station at 8:42 a.m. Central Time, as the International Space Station and Cygnus were flying 262 statute miles over the Arabian Sea. And that'll conclude Cygnus's journey to the International Space Station, which began on Tuesday, August 10th at 5:01 p.m. Central Time when it launched from Pad 0A at NASA's Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. At the time of launch, the International Space Station was flying 270 statute miles over the southern Indian Ocean. Cygnus was captured this morning at 5:07 a.m. Central Time by NASA astronaut Megan MacArthur at the controls of the station's robotic arm, backed by ESA astronaut Thomas Pesquet. After capture of the spacecraft, controls of the robotic arm were handed over to teams here on the ground who brought the spacecraft to the station and readied it for berthing, which took place on the Earth-facing side of the Unity module on the International Space Station at 8:42 a.m. Central Time, as the International Space Station and Cygnus were flying over the Arabian Sea. After a series of leak checks later today, the crew will enter Cygnus to begin unloading its contents, consisting of 8,200 pounds of science, research, crew supplies, and vehicle hardware. Cygnus will spend about 3 months attached to the space station until November. Until then, after which they will depart and perform secondary mission objectives. This Cygnus spacecraft for the space station resupply mission was dedicated to Ellison Onizuka, who was the first Asian American to fly in space. With the SS Ellison Onizuka successfully installed to the International Space Station, that'll wrap up our coverage this morning. This is Mission Control, Houston.